It's about broadband and being connected and having affordable and available broadband through fiber. The second one is develop our regional workforce to be competitive in the digital economy and other emerging industries. It's what we talked about yesterday. It's what we're going to talk more about today. The third one is to create more and expand existing small businesses within the region by taking full advantage of the digital economy. You're going to hear this broadband theme throughout each of these goals. Going forward, reduce the physical and economic impact of obesity, diabetes, and substance abuse. Goal 5, increase the amount of industrial employment, which includes manufacturing, natural resources, processing, distribution by expanding existing companies and attracting new ones. Create a local foods movement by connecting local producers to markets for their products both within and outside the region. And Goal 7, establish Kentucky's Appalachian region as a tourism destination. These are their 7 goals, and you heard yesterday about an economic base. And that is the core of each of these goals, is how do we build an economic base in each of our communities and in Eastern Kentucky. And that is, we sifted through the thousands of recommendations from that lens of what can we do to build an economic base. And we also looked at it in the fact that we need to employ 30,000 people. So when you look at that number, you got to think big. We can't go get the plan from 1962 and say we're going to do this again. It's got to be different, and the difference maker in our mind is technology. It's connectivity. It tears down barriers, it opens markets, everything we talked about yesterday. It's why we're here for 2 days, and it's why we need you to go back in your community and believe in it, share the story, and today you're going to see the impact. I've seen the impact firsthand. Many of you, some of you may know, but I've been in the guitar retail business since I got out of college. And I started a little store here in Pikeville and quadrupled it by moving it online, sales-wise. Now a partner in the store, and we do 50% of our business online. And when you change your mindset from thinking, how many guitars can I sell to Pike and Floyd County, to how many guitars can I sell to the world, and I can do it from right here, it changes every business opportunity, every entrepreneur in your community. It changes the potential of their growth. And we have to think that way. We got Ian here. So last year they had Power Grant applications. I was working with Jeff Whitehead. That was 2 years ago, I guess, the original Power Grant. And we had this idea, and I kind of pitched it on a conference call, and they said, we like it, we write some notes down. So I got up at like 6:30 one morning when it was due that day and wrote a page outline of what we called E-teams. And it was exactly what you were talking about there. It was the specific approach to identify 15 businesses, 10 to 15, that could grow through e-commerce or marketing. And what we would do is wrap around all the available resources to help them build a website, to do market planning for them, and use some grant money, not to give to the business, but to move them into this sphere. So Ian's leading that program with EKSET. How many businesses do you have now that you're working with?
15, and we're trying to save 124 jobs.
124 jobs working to save, working with 15 companies. Some of the money we've got left over from the grant that paid for this conference is going to be used for a pilot to go back into some of your communities and work with your businesses to do just that. So stay tuned for that. He's going to be talking right after lunch, and we'll be on the panel to talk about next steps moving forward. I think that's all I've got to say this morning. Yes.
I got 2 questions on
that.
So we'll know how to remain connected with SOAR.
Yeah.
Do we generally know what time frame that something will be? And the other is, some of the 9 working groups have not met since they did that first report. And some of us, we're trying to figure out, we don't want to go out on our own, but we don't want to sit back and not do anything.
Right.
Anything on time frames?
So one, the summit, the date we're bouncing around, this is not a firm date. I'm still trying to get it confirmed with the governor and congressman, but June 5th is the tentative date for the summit. If you want to go ahead and mark that down, I would do that, but don't reschedule your wedding or anything. do that to be at the summit. It's a pretty important event. So June 5th, tentative on that. So what we're doing now that we've got this blueprint, what we're trying to do is we're moving into action teams around these goals. And we formed one. We formed the last mile action team that's working around goal 1, infrastructure side. You see these, they're ranked 1 to 7. I wouldn't say they're priority. I wouldn't say we do one then the other. We're doing all 7 at the same time. I would say from my perspective, I think from the top to the bottom has the greatest potential impact on the region. We get the greatest return. We make the biggest difference as we're successful from the top to the bottom. Does that make sense? But I think we need to be doing all 7. None of them alone could create 30,000 jobs, I think, is what we got our arms around in our office. So this year, part of what we'll be doing is building, we'll get the advisory council back together, and then we're going to build some action teams around these goals and start to set metrics and identify community projects and elevate the projects that are going on in the region that line up with this, that we can support and that we can lead. What we found is really hard is to have a working group for 54 counties. So we're rethinking this about how do we build more localized groups that can start to work in their community to develop projects around this that are then connected to a wider network. So that the action, the work is going to get done in your community. We understand that. But it needs to line up with what we're working toward overall as a region. This is complicated stuff. I bored my wife to death talking about it. So we're all in this together, and you are a part of SOAR. Summit, June 5th. Watch for advisory council meetings and the last mile action team. You also want to watch for the social network that we're getting ready to launch in January, February, that you'll be able to join and continue this dialogue 24/7. We started this trying to have listening sessions and meetings, and you can't do that in 54 counties. You get the same 25 people. That's just me being honest. You see that in your community when you have a listening session, it's the same people. Well, we got to reach a new group, and we think we can do it through technology. So this side is going to be structured around these 7 goals, and you can share your projects. That way, if somebody's doing local foods in Harlan County and you live in Whitley County, you can get on and see their project, who's working on it there, and build a network around specifically accomplishing the goals that we've established. So watch for that as well. That's all I've got. So I'm going to bring Roberto up a little behind schedule. I'm sorry about that. But we appreciate having him back this morning. Appreciate his comments from yesterday, and it's all his.
I'm going to switch this to the So I'm just going to start where we left off yesterday, and we're going to get where the rubber meets the road, which is what I like when I do my extension stuff. I'm not going to introduce myself. I hope you remember my accent, at least. Okay? So that's really where I'm going to start off today. Size does not matter in the digital age. Make sure you remember that when you're doing outreach and trying to get your businesses and government and general public to leverage technology for community economic development. We talked about the 6 indicators. It provides a holistic view of the community. Many times, and I understand it's the low-hanging fruit, you want to go in and hit the small business owners or somebody, but many times you fail to see that the environment is not conducive to do that. And you have to take 2 or 3 steps back before you attempt to reach out. So basically, again, broadband connectivity, I'm going to go over a little bit on that. Knowledge workforce, I talked about that yesterday. Digital equality, sustainability, advocacy, those are very, very important things to keep in mind. Those of you that completed the checklist, you kept me up late at night and early this morning finishing the reports. I emailed them to those of you that did complete it, and keep in mind that checklist is a conversation starter. It's not the end, it's not set in stone, it's just to give an idea of what we should be doing. So those of you that did complete it, you're going to see something like that in the report. I call it the gauge. It's very simple. Depending on what you responded, that's what I came up with. This one here shows of an ideal digital-minded community. Where did this particular community score? It's at about 50%. But here's the key thing. These are the 6 indicators that I've shown here. Here's where the community landed on each one of those. That, to me, has proven very useful when I'm working with communities, because that gives a very quick idea. Shoot, we're way bad in sustainability, right? Or you know what, we're doing something already with broadband connectivity, we're okay. Other communities rank high on these, but low on this one. So there's a mismatch. And so this gauge should help you kind of visualize, okay, where are we going to focus? I'm talking, again, 30,000 feet view, okay? So I've emailed you, respond, I've copied Kevin, whatever you need. Those of you in Kentucky, Dr. Allison Davis is my colleague here for extension. Most of my resources are extension related, but that does not mean that some of your communities can run with them, and those are the ones I'm going to share with you shortly. So again, this is just a gauge. It's just when I sit down with community leaders, they go, okay, we're missing advocacy, we're missing sustainability, knowledge, workforce, whatever it is. And so then we get running with that, okay? Now, some pragmatic stuff. What have we done in extension in Mississippi? Now, I know that many people equate extension with ad, and we are ad. It is what we were born of. But we are branching out on other things as well. So that's why I'm having a lot of trouble, not a lot of trouble, but it's a challenge in Mississippi, and we've had to develop innovative programs. These are scalable. I can send them over to extension here or to any other community that's interested in running with them. Let me go over some of them quickly. They hit on each of those indicators. Again, the community tells me, you know what, Roberto, let's focus on advocacy first. I think we believe as a community that's low-hanging fruit. Let's go with it. So the community tells me what they want to focus on, and then I just deploy the resources, and I am a facilitator. The first one, Virtual Incubator Program, VIP, that one is basically a program that's geared towards small business owners and entrepreneurs. It's very basic. We sit down with them. We have about 10 to 12 topics. 4 of them are mandatory. The rest, the business decides what they want to do. So it's kind of customized. Okay? It's webinars. We sit down with them. They learn the basics. We're nothing sophisticated, just the basics. And then, after that, we provide a one-on-one technical assistance with the business until they're comfortable enough that they can then go and do it on their own. That's the virtual incubator part of it. We've had great success stories, and let me tell you, being in the trenches, we had the response we wanted from business owners, but not at the level we needed. And we were scratching our heads going, why aren't they interested? They've got to start doing this, right? And multiple online presence strategies, whatever. You know, social media, website, location-based services, whatever it's needed. And then we ran across this gentleman who's been selling roses for 40 years. He's got his customers identified. He's got it all worked out for him. When we approached him with this, shared with him the resources he could be doing, he said, thank you, but no thank you. I'm not interested. Well, but look at the stats. Look at where the digital age is going. You know, everything. Nah, thank you. Okay, and the extension agent was, you know, extension agents are in every community. She was the person that introduced us to them. That's one thing I want to highlight. Get a local champion at the local level that will introduce you, that is trusted, because you cannot talk about these topics without having trust. I cannot just show up and say, here I am to help you. Okay? That's a key lesson that we've learned. Hello? That's fine. So, long story short, nothing happened with this guy, right? We didn't know, but a couple months later, he hires somebody part-time, somewhat younger. This lady stumbles into his notes, and she calls us and says, I want to set up a website for this guy. And we said, sure, let's do it. So we worked with her, part-time employee. We got her an e-commerce shopping cart. We got her everything she needed, and she started selling roses beyond what this guy had been doing for 40 years. When the revenue report comes in, the guy goes, "Whoa, my revenue went up. That's awesome." Yeah, the employee said, "You've been selling online for the past 3 months." What? I like this. I like this. The key lesson that we learned is that their number one business is to run their business. They may not be open to these new platforms. They're already busy as it is. So it hit us, why don't we then train the employees to do this, not necessarily the owners. And I don't care if you're part-time, I don't care if you have one employee, but that makes a big difference. So that led us to, that's down here, doctor certification, which stands for Digital Ready Certification. We surveyed in partnership with Mississippi Main Street, all the Main Streets, well, those that responded in Mississippi. The idea is to come up with a certification that will provide a comfort level for those potential employees for them to go in and manage online presence strategies for businesses. We realized that owners, they may be interested, but they're running their business. When I got my hair cut before coming, I was thinking, how can I expect this lady to come to a 2-hour workshop when she's got her shop full? But what about her employees or her part-time employees, whatever? So that's one resource we do. I'll be glad to share whatever materials you want. The topics we have, it's all very basic, and it ranges from building a website to social presence and all that, social media presence. We also have a Master Technology Innovator. What that does is we recruit young adults or seniors that are tech savvy, and then we place them in libraries, in schools, and whatever community anchor institution we have, and then they provide technical assistance. In Mississippi, the libraries jumped at this big time because they are already being hit with, with cuts and not a lot of employees and all that stuff, and then they get a lot of technical questions. So if you can place a volunteer in their facility, they are so delighted. And you're not going to guess the number one thing the volunteer always helps when she or he is volunteering. How to open an email account. So folks, do not assume that because you know how to use email and it's 40 years old, everybody does. And that lady, that volunteer, helped multiple people apply for jobs online that they couldn't because they didn't have an email address. It's that simple. So the extension agent, what they do is they recruit the volunteers among their 4-H or whatever they've got going on, and then they reach out to community anchor institutions like libraries, schools, whatever, and then they connect the dots. Okay, you volunteer, you're needed here. At the end, we give them a t-shirt. We give them a certificate. I'm trying to get grant money to give them an iPad or some sort of a stipend to really get this thing rolling. And it's running now in 3 or 4 Mississippi communities. And we're getting great feedback from libraries saying, thank you. Because we get this all the time. Another number one thing we get all the time, cyberbullying. And not from the kids, from the parents. They're like, what the heck is that? How can I identify it? Is my child in danger? I mean, what's going on? So that's what these MTI folks do. Digital literacy in general. This is a picture of me giving a computer basics workshop in a volunteer fire department in Louise, Mississippi, population 300. Literally, you blink and you miss it when you're driving. And yet I had a highest per capita turnout of all my workshops. The local bank heard about it. After I finished this, they donated 5 computers to the mayor and said, we want this done constantly. Here you go. The local carrier, we didn't know there was a fiber exchange 200 feet from that volunteer fire department classroom. They dropped a free Wi-Fi hotspot fed by fiber. When the mayor called me, I said, I don't believe you, mayor. Come on. No, you better come here and do us one of those things you do, that speed test. It clocked 250 up and down. And I'm like, ooh, okay. So that's another example of that digital literacy. I was also in a classroom teaching a workshop when an 84-year-old sent his first email. I'm telling you, I write grants, I do a lot of stuff, but there is nothing more rewarding than seeing that. Then at the end of the workshop, the gentleman comes to me and says, thank you. Now I understand all that fuzz about that online thing. It's small things, folks. It's small things that make the difference. We help with websites. We have a full-time staff, just a basic website, and trains them to maintain it, because that's the key thing. You may build it, you're like, yay, and then you go back and it's 6 years old, right? You're like, why haven't you updated this? Well, because we've got other things to do. That's where Master Technology Innovators can help as well. And 4-H Robotics, Scratch Junior. Scratch Junior is a free app from MIT that runs on an iPad. I got a grant and got 10 iPads and went to a Boys and Girls Club in Carthage, Mississippi. And there's tons of material ready from Scratch Junior of exercises and curriculum you can do. It's basically, they build a cartoon. So you ask a 6-year-old, do you like cartoons? Yeah. Do you want to build yours? Of course. It is amazing how they have never been exposed to an iPad. Yet after 2 minutes, they're swiping up and left and right and down. And about 15 minutes later, they've got those cartoons moving. The dinosaur touches the other dinosaur, and I can record my voice. No training. I didn't tell them how to do that. But in the background, they're coding. They're coding. So once we finished that session, I told the kids, man, it was hard to take the iPads away from them. We're like, your daddy is here. You've got to go, but I like this. Right? And so at the end, I told, please go and tell your daddy that you have written your first computer program. I did. You did. You never know what seed you're planting on those kids. And it's simple things. Simple things. So that's what we're doing. And then robotics is a little bit more complicated. E-front door, another thing we have to develop. PR people in the audience are going to be thrilled about this. Like I mentioned yesterday, a community Googled itself, found in the images a KKK picture parade, right? He's like, how can I take that down? Well, what you need to do is start uploading a lot of images with this community's name tagged to it, and then eventually that image is going to be bumped down in the search engine results to the second or third page where nobody goes. That's really what we can do. But so then we decided to partner with the communications department on campus. They provide the students, I provide the communities, and they already have a guideline remotely from a community they have never heard of. They go in and assess it online. They're like, ooh, how does this community look like? Oh, okay. And then they go in a secret shopper mode to the community and compare what they found online with what they see physically. And then they come up with a report, and the students present that to elected officials and whoever wants to show up. Many communities, the students told me, it looks a lot prettier, or it's a very charming community physically, but yet I cannot see that online. But let me help you do that. And we are hoping that some of those kids are hired as part-time social media managers or whatever for those communities. We are retaining youth, and the communities are improving their online perception or reputation. And digital works, of course, we've talked about that. That's very, very encouraging. We're pushing, we're scaling that up, but hopefully we will launch it as a larger version in the spring. But it is, again, fascinating to see a lady that's been unemployed for 10 years graduate the program, and then she gets called for a virtual interview. I cannot quantify what that did to her self-esteem. Her attitude changed, everything. It was just eye-opening. And then I've spoken to you about doctor certification, the digital ready. So those are the things we're doing in the trenches, and they are baby steps. But as you all know, a 1,000-mile journey starts with baby steps. I'm not asking the communities to become the Silicon Valley overnight, but these steps, more importantly, lead to the community adopting a digital mindset. Once they do that, I can then go, congratulations, you can do this on your own. I'm going to go help another community. Thank you.